Welcome to Coffee Talk with Liquidshano 1973, an inspirational podcast about the ups and downs of life and everything in between. Here's your host, Shane Lakita.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So here we are again, right? You, me, this podcast, Coffee Talk with Liquidshano 1973. And all we do is we sit down and we talk about life. We talk about our struggles. We talk about our ups, our downs, our overs, our unders, everything in between, just like the intro said. This is what we talk about. And most of the time it comes from thoughts that I have or things that I read or tips that I've been given that are going to be able to help others in their journeys, whether it's health related, whether it's weight loss related, whether it's success related, whether it's professional related, whatever it is. We talk about that here. We talk about being the best version of ourselves, moving forward in the positive space of a can-do attitude of being able to believe in yourself, that you can do anything that you set your mind to, anything that you set your heart to, and anything that you set a path for you to be successful. This is going to help you do that. So if you know folks that need that same exact help, that need to hear some positive reinforcement, to hear some words of encouragement, to hear some just thoughts in general, to be able to get them in the right frame of mind to a can-do attitude versus, yeah, I'm all set, then send them right here to this podcast. Refer it, send them over. I'm here. I'm on any of the social media platforms. I'm on any of the podcasting platforms that you can find out there. As a matter of fact, today I had a maintenance guy over at the house here. He was over here working on the hot tub in the backyard. We've had some issues with it. And he was there. We were talking about podcasts. And he uses a different app. I think it's called, I can't remember the exact app that he uses for all of his podcasts. But he was telling me a little bit about how he listens to them. And he goes down the road of whether it's political or those kind of things. But he listens to podcasts and actually wants to get into it a little bit. He has a small little studio that he records music in. And we were just chatting, and I told him the name of the podcast. As soon as he went to go type in Coffee Talk with, my podcast popped right up, and he subscribed to it. So it's on any of the platforms that you listen to podcasts on. There I am. I'm here with you, and we are in it together. We're in it to win it together. Okay? So today's podcast is all about going with your gut. I was listening to a guy. He was having a conversation. And one of the things that he had said was his success he was a very financially successful guy, but he's a younger guy. And what he was sharing is that anytime that he listened to other people or listened to other avenues or other bits of advice that people had, whether it's financial success or health success or whatever, anytime he listened to other folks, he always ended up struggling, trying to be that other person, trying to live up to the other person's expectations or pattern themselves after another person or anything like that. And what he had said is that he was more successful when he started to listen to himself. And he actually went with his gut, not with the emotional side of things. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it was more around gut reaction towards certain things. Your gut can tell you a lot of stuff. And I love the concept that what he was sharing is that it's raw honesty of what your gut tells you. Even when your gut tells you not to do stuff or when it tells you to do stuff, you should probably listen to your gut. But what happens is the mind overtakes the gut. And what he was saying is that we get into the emotional state. We get into the place where we don't want to listen to ourselves, or we're scared, or we're petrified of doing things that might make us uncomfortable or awkward or stepping out of our comfort zone or any of those things. We sit down and we talk ourselves out of things because we don't want to listen to what our gut reaction is. We don't want to listen to what that initial one moment that you may have to knowing what you're supposed to do or what maybe your life is telling you what to do, but you don't listen because then you bring in reason and you bring in thoughts that might change your way of thinking when it comes to that gut reaction towards whatever aspect of things that we're talking about. You know, a lot of people will say to you, you shouldn't go with your gut because a lot of that is whether it's you're an addict towards certain drugs or alcohol, or you're an addict towards food or whatever, your initial reaction a lot of times is to go to those comforts. But that's not really what he's talking about. What he's talking about is when you're going down the road of making life decisions, certain things that you're trying to be able to accomplish, and his in this situation was financial impact. What he had said is that he went with what he felt was going to be the best avenue to be able to set himself up for success and then also become financially stable based on the fact that he knew that that's what he was going to go with. Now, one of the other things that he shared is that sometimes your gut doesn't necessarily work, and that's okay too, because picking yourself back up and moving forward is part of the process. Not everything is going to be perfect. And this is something important to remember when we're talking about trying to be able to be the best version of ourselves. We want it to be at this place where we can just flip a switch, look in the mirror, and just go omni domini, poof, and there we are in this place where everything is right. And all of your dreams automatically come true, or you're at the weight loss point that you wanted to be at, or whatever it is. We want it to be a flip of a switch and just a magic potion that we can go ahead and move forward with it. And that doesn't happen. We all know that. That's silly talk. But here's the thing. If you know that you got to put work into it, and you know there are going to be bumps in the road, and you know there's going to be failures at times, then why do we limit ourselves from trying to be able to go for it? Because we're afraid. Because we're scared of falling down and really hurting ourselves. We're scared of what other people may think of us. We're scared of things in general that we've been patterned in our brains to stay away from all our lives. When you really think about it, if you're not taking chances and risks and stepping out there, out of your comfort zone, and really challenging your thought process, you're never going to experience all the things that you want to experience in life. I mean, that's a really, really huge thing when you think about the grand scheme of all of what we're trying to be able to accomplish. Because we assume that it's just going to be hard and difficult and hurtful. When in all actuality, those are learning moments. We've talked about it on this podcast so many times before. If you fail and you go down the road of skinning your knee, falling down, and being able to pick yourself back up, how much more do you learn from that other than the moment that you are basically spoon-fed something? You know, there's a podcast that I listen to. It's basically called The Underdog. He's the underdog. And basically what it is a podcast on there, and the guy went to jail for like 5 or 6 years, okay? He went to jail. He was a gang member. He was all kinds of different stuff. He was in serious trouble, had twins, and went to jail for 6 years. So he lost all the younger years of his kid's life. And he got out, and he thought to himself, I'm going to start a podcast. And it's a hugely successful one. He's interviewed some pretty successful financial people, also motivational speakers, and all kinds of other stuff. So he's really on a path for success, makes 6-figure income from the podcast, really has done well for himself. But one of the things that he shared was people that have been given almost like a silver spoon, or given the keys to the car and the keys to the kingdom all their lives, and they're given everything that they need to. On his end, he knows he's going to outwork them, he's going to outsmart them, and he's going to outfight them because of the stuff that he's been through in his life. He's been through the ringer. He's been through ups and downs. He's been at the bottom of the barrel. He's been through the whole entire situation of situations that we don't even fathom going through. But he's been through a lot, and he's fell down, and he's failed, and he's had to scrape his way back up and claw his way back up to wherever he has to go to. And at the end of the day, if that is the space that he lives in, he knows you might beat me right off the bat. You might have more money than me. You might have more success than me. But I know at the end, in the long run, I'm going to be the one that's going to be fighting at the end. Nobody's going to outwork me. Nobody. Now, that's the mentality that we need to have. Whatever it is that you're fighting for, whatever your gut tells you that this is what you should go down the road of doing, whatever your internal voice is telling you, listen to it. Because 9 times out of 10, that voice is right. That voice is right. And that's both, like I said before, it's both in the negative and in the positive. If it tells you not to do something, and not based on emotion, not based on what other people told you, but your internal gut, that internal voice that tells you, I don't need to do this because of the following reasons. Maybe it's not a smart decision. Let's move forward, right? Quickly. Not the thinking side of it, not the one where you're weighing out all the options. You're not the one where you're weighing out the positives and the pros and the cons and all that stuff, and you're thinking it through and you're mapping it out and you're doing all that stuff. This is more about the reaction that you have towards certain things. So let's talk about where a majority of the people that are on this podcast here are all in health journeys, weight loss journeys, and trying to be the best version of themselves, fitness-wise, mentally, and everything. And when you look at everything, you're trying to be able to be the best version of you. You're trying to be that person, right? So here we are working at it together. We're all fighting the good fight. And so basically something comes up where you're like, okay, I want to lose some weight. And your gut tells you, I know how I need to lose this weight. I need to, as in yesterday's podcast was, I need to eat less and move more. Simple concept, nice and easy. We're good to go. Calories in, calories out. I know that that's the concept of where I'm at. But then we start to get muddied in the waters, like I said. We start to overthink things. We start to add all these other concepts into the equation. We have all these other people selling products and proteins and drinks and shakes and all kinds of other stuff outside of it to be able to say, hey, you can lose a lot of weight in a really short amount of time by taking this or taking that, because they're tapping into that emotional thing that we have in our brains. When your gut tells you, I know what I need to do, I know exactly what I need to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. But then after that initial gut reaction and the initial gut mental thought that you have, we tend to psych ourselves out. We tend to talk ourselves out of the things that we know that works, right? I mean, all of us do it. We're all in this space where we know what we need to do to be successful. We have blueprints and patterns of success moving forward. Now, one person's blueprint may not be the same as you, and I get that, but we've learned along the way. And anybody around my age, where I'm 46 years old, I'm looking at it going, you know what? I've learned a lot through my lifetime so far. I've learned a lot of what not to do. I've learned a lot of what to do, and I'm not perfect. And I know I'm going to learn a whole lot more as I continue to progress and I continue to learn and I continue to challenge my thought process and step out of my comfort zones. These are important things to think about. When we are digging in and we think initial reaction towards certain things, we tend to stay away from those initial reactions. You know what the process is. If it's weight loss, like I just said, you know it's calories in, calories out. You know it's if I eat less or I eat healthier and I work out more or I move more, I'm going to lose weight. But then we start to think about it. And we sit and park in the space of, oh, what am I really doing? Do I want to do all that work? Do I want to work out every day? I can't really do it. My knees are bad. Or I can't really do it because, I get winded or those kind of things. And we talk ourselves out of everything. And how difficult it's going to be. And we just want the easy fix. And we want something that's going to be able to, like I said, flip of a switch in a poof of a wand or whatever else. And we want to be able to be in the space that we can do that. But in all actuality, that's not the case. And we've got to be better. And we got to dig in. And we got to listen to ourselves in the initial phases of the things that we do. Stop talking ourselves out of things. It's the same exact concept of when we ask our friends and our family. We know what the answer needs to be. But then we look for validation from people. We look for validation. So let's say, for instance, it's a job promotion that you want to get. Okay? And you're setting yourself up for success. You've been working really hard. You're at a point where you could get promoted and you're about to try to move up in the company and try to be able to get a promotion and be able to be successful. And you start asking questions of other folks of, do you think I should? For that validation piece we're looking for. Or you're asking them, give me some tips and pointers of what I should really do at the interview. And you're looking for from a really good place. And they're giving you tips from a really good place. But guess what? Johnny Joe's method of doing an interview is not your method of doing an interview. It comes off not authentic. It comes across as being something that somebody else gave you as a tip and a pointer of how to be successful, right? So it's not really you. And it's not your gut reaction. It's not your initial, here's my answer to the question that you're asking, and here's how I really feel about the situation, and here's what the things that I've been through before. Because you don't want to look unpolished, or you want to look, professional, or those kind of things. And listening to other people's tips and pointers can sometimes be a detriment rather than a success story. So I loved what he said. He said, I go with my gut reaction, and my gut reaction usually is never wrong. And if it is wrong, then maybe I'll adjust a little bit. Maybe I take a little bit of that path that I'm taking right now with path A, and I might move it into path A/1 or A/2. I'm still going down the same path. I'm still got my initial gut reaction towards doing it, but maybe I need to do it a little differently. Maybe I need to do it a little better, or work on it to be more polished or more effective, or I need to set up a schedule for me to be successful in whatever it is that I'm trying to work on, so that way I know that I'm making positive movement forward and this is where I'm going. Now, like I said before, I wanted to touch a little bit on the gut reaction piece of it. Can really be a slippery slope for people, though, because what we do is we rely on emotion to be that gut reaction. So if stress happens in life, what do? I know what I do. I go right to the fridge and I try to eat anything possible, because that's me. That's how I'm wired. That's my brain. Am I using my gut reaction towards eating food in a positive light? Probably not. So what I need to do is I need to give myself something as a question, or something as in a one-time check-in whenever something happens, to ask myself the question, what do I do now? Just to give myself that clarity and focus on knowing that I'm thinking my things through, but not overthinking things. So if I know that I go towards food, unhealthy items, fattening foods, sweets, or anything like that, whenever stress happens or whenever life happens, and these are the things that I do, then I need to be able to outfit myself to maybe put a question in right before I go towards the food. Maybe the question could be, what's the next steps you want to take? It's just a really quick check-in to be able to think that out a little bit. Not overthink it. There's a difference. The difference is I need to think about it just for a moment to be able to, is the impact going to be something great that I want to be able to put this forward with? Should I go towards the bad foods that I've been working so hard to be against, or working so hard to lose weight or be healthy, or those kind of things, or I have diabetes, or I've got high blood pressure, or whatever? Should I do those things, or should I maybe think this through just for a moment and go do some exercise and go for a walk or go do something like that? It gives you a little bit of a reactionary moment. Even though your gut tells you to do that, you're thinking it through. Now, like I said, thinking it through is much different than overthinking it. Because overthinking it means you're going to talk yourself out of whatever it is you're trying to be able to accomplish. You're going to talk yourself out of being able to be successful. You're going to talk yourself out of anything that can move you forward. 9 times out of 10, we think things through so much and we overthink it that we convince ourselves not to do it, or to be going down the road of bad decisions. As a matter of fact, some of those unhealthy habits, some of the times that I've dove into the Boston cream pie or the cheesecake or whatever, were based on the fact that I overthought it so much that I just said, F it, I'm going to give up. I'm just going to go down the road of just eating this, and that's what I'm going to do. And that's not healthy either, because we got to be focused. Listen, this isn't easy. This it takes work. It takes dedication. It takes progress. It takes all the different terms you can think of something that takes, it's not the flip of a switch, and it's not the magic potion, and it's not the magic wand, because this is life. And life can sometimes be a bitch sometimes. It really can. It can be tough because it throws everything at you, sometimes all at once, sometimes one on top of the other, or whatever it does. It can be a really mean-spirited thing. And how we respond to that and how we react to that really sets ourselves up for how it's going to be moving forward. If you respond to it emotionally and then you think things through, overthinking it, a lot of times we're not going to set ourselves up for success moving forward. So the concept of going with your gut can mean many different avenues, many different things. You know, sometimes people say going with your gut can be a bad thing when it comes to, stock trading or gambling or things like that. You go with your gut, that's what I'm going to ride with. Well, that's not a smart decision. Sometimes it's based on information or data or trends or things like that, which is an informative going with your gut. That's okay. I get it. Some people are very successful in that space. But what I'm saying is you go with your gut because you know how to be successful. You know what works with you. You know your body better than anybody else. You know what works for you better than anybody else. You know what your triggers are better than anybody else. You know what your whys are better than anybody else. You know all this information. This is all data driven. You know all of it. You know every bit of information you need to know to be successful and set yourself up for a successful plan for you to move forward. You know all this stuff. You know all this information. And at the end of the day, you're the person that can make firm, solid, good decisions for yourself. You've got to practice that. I know I do. Because I don't always make the most effective decisions. I don't think things through enough that when I go with my gut, sometimes it's already been processed 1,000 times over by me. And it's not really going with my gut. It's more of an analytical, let me think about it. Let me crunch things out. Let me weigh out the measures, the pros and cons and everything. And I don't necessarily go down the road of knowing what I know and keeping it simple. Because I know what works for me. If we know what works for us and we know what the blueprint is, why aren't we doing it? What's the reason? What's the reason that you know how to be successful? You know if you're in financial debt and you've got tons of credit cards, you know what you need to do. Now, I know that some people will say that the addiction part of things come into play. You know, I might know what I need to do when it comes to eating right, but addiction to food can really come into play. I might know that I shouldn't drink booze because I get in trouble or health-related wise, but I still drink booze because of the addiction. I might know that I have those credit cards all maxed out, but I continue to use the credit cards because I have an addiction to shopping. Right? All these different things that we have, there's addictions that come into play. I get all that. I do. And that's more of the clinical side of things. That's more of how you got to dig into the process of you knowing how the framework of your body and mind works, right? I mean, that's all part of where you're at with it. I get all that. That's more noise that life will deal you, right? That's part of who we are. What I'm saying to you is, if you do know what it takes to be successful in whatever round that you're going in, put one foot in front of the other and start to go down that road. Start to be able to do the things that you know works for you. You don't have to listen to everybody else in the world. You don't have to listen to every YouTube fitness guru. You don't have to listen to every financial guy standing on the stage or girl standing on the stage to tell you how they're millionaires and they go to garage sales and they resell stuff and it's going to be amazing and all that stuff. You don't have to do all that. You don't have to. I like to listen to other people's views and opinions because it can help me formulate some of mine. But I'll tell you, I don't go and live my life based on what somebody else's template is for success. I don't. I can't. Because that's not my journey. That's not my template. That's not my book. That's theirs. And it works for them. Things have happened in their lives that have helped them be successful based on the fact that whatever goes on around them, this is how they navigate it and this is what they do. But just because it works for them doesn't mean it works for you. You've got to lean in on what you know. Go with your gut. You know what you need to do to be successful. You know that you got to put boundaries up for food-wise. You know you've got to take all the alcohol out of the house. You know that you've got to be able to start cutting the credit cards and actually make payments on those credit cards and just cut them and not use them. You know what you need to do. Now, getting there and doing it is a whole other equation. But you know what you need to do. You know what the template looks like. You know what the first step needs to be. The key to it is now you got to put one foot in front of the other and do it. Make it happen. Do what you need to do to be successful. Do what you need to do to know what you need to do. You have the blueprint, like I said before, and now you just got to do it. You have to execute. Now you've got to make sure that you're saying, okay, I'm worth the investment of me taking these risks of me doing this moving forward, even though it's not really a risk because you know it works. It's a true, pure, bona fide way of you to be able to be successful, and you know that it's going to be successful if you put the work in and you focus on all the different things that you've got to do to be successful. Well, at the end of the day, hello, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you put you know what it is, you know the template, you know the blueprint, you know all the different things you need to do to be successful, and now you've got to be able to execute. This is where the issue happens, is where the execution piece happens, because we're afraid to put one foot in front of the other, or we start to, and then we fall. And like I said right in the very opening of this podcast, you learn more from the falls and the scrapes and all those things than you would if you were just a nice, easy, smooth sailing transition to getting to where you have to get to. And I feel the more of those failures that I get to, the more drive it's going to give me to get there. This is what we have to do. We have to overcome the fact that we may feel defeated, or we feel down in the dumps, or we feel horrible, or we feel like we're failures or whatever. Instead of feeling that way, we got to feel like this is part of the job. It's part of the journey. It's part of the work. If I put the work in, I know eventually there's going to be a successful outcome at the end. You got to put the work in, and you got to fail. You got to fall. You got to feel like, okay, this is a journey. It's not an instant reaction. It's not anything like that. It's something that I've got to work at. Okay, so let's summarize, guys. Let's summarize the podcast here. You know what you need to do, because you got to go with your gut reaction. Your gut reaction is, this has worked for me before, or I know my body better than anybody else. I know what I need to do. I just now need to do it. And I've got to put a plan in place to actually put one foot in front of the other to make that happen. And then I've got to hold myself accountable to doing those actions and the things that I'm trying to do. And then I've got to learn from my mistakes as I move forward. I've got to take notes. Write down, maybe grab a journal. I always talk about jotting down your thoughts. Grab a journal and map it out and see exactly what your journey looks like. Because if you make mistakes, great, you need to learn from those mistakes. You can't just go to make the mistakes and then make the mistakes again and again and again, because that's counterproductive. Okay? So there we go. You've got the blueprint. You know what your gut tells you need to do. You got to go with your gut and know that this is what it's going to take for you to be successful. You got the blueprint. Now you need a plan around execution, around what that blueprint looks like. Now you've got to actually execute, one foot in front of the other, and doing it. Hold yourself accountable by grabbing an accountability partner, helping yourself, doing whatever, making videos, posting posts, or whatever it is towards your accountability. And then learn from your mistakes when you do fail, because guess what? You are going to fail. There's no road that is not bumpy. There's no road that we're taking that does not have curves, bends, potholes, and whatever else that we're trying to go across. There's no road that doesn't have that. So you need to expect that to happen. And then you learn from that, and you need to move forward to continue to know that this is a journey. It's a long-term evolution. It's something we're fighting for every day, and we keep on putting ourselves in the right place to get there just by making those types of decisions and listening to who you are as a person and listening to your body. Does that make sense? Because it made perfect sense to me when he was saying, every time I go with my gut, I'm never wrong. Interesting, right? Okay, guys, we'll talk soon.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Please do us a favor and leave feedback and a 5-star rating on whatever platform that you use.